Hi, I'm Ryan Taylor. I'm a realtor here in Moncton, and today we're going to talk about leverage. I apologize in advance for the clickbait title, and I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to try and make this video nice and concise. All right, so leverage. It's a double-edged sword, and chances are you've probably heard about how it can amplify your gains, but what you might not have heard is that it can also amplify losses. This is something a lot of people don't learn until it's too late. Whether you see yourself as an investor or not, leverage works for investors the same way it works for you, so it's important to understand how it works. Now, the short of it is, when you buy a home with 5% down, a small drop in prices will be a lot more impactful to you than someone who has 20% down or even more down or owns the house entirely in cash. In finance and economics, this is what's known as levered losses. And here in Canada, it's a little bit more extreme because of CMHC premiums. Now, what do I mean by this? If you put 5% down in Canada on a house, and you paid the 4% CMHC premiums, a mere 1.2% drop in home prices can wipe out 100% of your equity. Now, this sounds scary, but don't panic, because by knowing what to do, you'll make out just fine. Leverage is a powerful tool, and when used properly, it can do incredible things as well as terrible things if it is used incorrectly. Now, what I've done here is I've created a line chart showing levered losses. This is including 5 different price drop categories and 4 different down payment categories. Now, as you can see on this chart here, you can visually see the way levered losses are going to impact the different purchasing categories. Obviously, in the green, this is your 20% down. These people have no CMHC premiums, therefore they are the least impacted. And then slightly below that is your 15% down and then 10% down. The massive drop you see here is the blue line, that's your 5% down. And this is because this is the most expensive insurance premium category here. So as you can see, a 20% drop in home prices will wipe out 2,000% of your equity. Now, what is CMHC insurance? It's mortgage default insurance. It is designed to protect the lender in the event of a default. It's basically our mechanism to prevent something like the Great Financial Crisis. However, it is an insurance product that is paid for by the purchaser that protects the lender. And oftentimes that is bundled up in your mortgage and you are financing this insurance premium. Now, what I've done here, obviously in Moncton and most of New Brunswick, the average price is around $350K. The median's around $350 here in Moncton. So what I've done with this little table is I put in the down payment categories, the relative CMHC premiums. You can see these here in the second column. And then this is your day one equity. So right when you move in. And as you can see here with a 5% down payment at a $350K home, 3,500 day one equity. At negative 1%, equity entirely wiped out in the 5% group. The 10% down group has lost about $4,000 of their equity. And then you can see the rest here. Now you might be wondering, why did I use 20%? Well, in 2022, between the peak in February to the end at December, our median price here in Moncton dropped 22% in about 10 months. Now, I don't necessarily think that's going to happen again. I will say that our prices are elevated right now, and there's definitely a reasonable amount of risk in our market. Is it 20%? I'm not sure, but these are the numbers that I've chosen to go with for this table for illustrative purposes. Now, a 5% drop in home prices is a flesh wound if you put 20% down. But if you put 5% down, it's like a sledgehammer to the face. Now, this is not to say that 5% down mortgages are bad. There are a lot of people who go with the 5% down even when they have 20% or more down. It just depends on what your plan is, on what you're going to do with the difference of capital up front. As long as you have a plan, you'll be fine. Just make sure you have an actual plan and you're not just extending your credit to the max. Don't just buy the most expensive house you can afford or qualify for. Buy one that fits your budget. Now, you'll often hear things like buy and hold for at least 3 to 5 years or 5 to 7 years. And this is because of the way loans in general work. Most loans, the interest is a little bit front loaded. And as you get further into the amortization of the loan, the principal that is getting paid down gets higher and the interest goes down. So the first 2 years of your mortgage, you're paying a lot more interest than the last 2 years of your mortgage. All right, now let's get a little bit into behavioral economics. I don't want to go too much into this because it's a subject, of course, that is above my pay grade, something I'm technically not qualified to talk about as I am not an economist. There are economists I would recommend you follow on YouTube, like Economics Explained, Nola Mathias, those sort of people. Lots of great content out there for that. I'm not going to get too much into it, but I am going to explain a little bit about this because real estate doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's not just about math, it's about how humans react to markets. Now, when highly leveraged households are hurting financially, they cut back spending, which hurts the economy, which leads to future unemployment and sometimes prices dropping more than they should. Now, leverage doesn't just amplify personal finances. When leverage is widespread like it is in Canada and a lot of countries these days, it's the entire economy. It can really amplify the economic cycle. Whether you're in a boom or bust period, it can really accelerate that, and it can make it a lot more extreme. In economics, there's something called the wealth effect. Basically, what that means is when households perceive that they have high net worth, usually due to the real estate value that they own, they were more incentivized to spend money in the economy, whether that means borrowing or buying with cash. And it works the other way around. When they feel that their net worth is taking a hit, they're more likely to pull back their spending. Now, when real estate gets really bad, it's not necessarily about what you can sell for, it's whether or not you can sell. When panic sets in, things get a little bit irrational and liquidity can disappear pretty quick, at least in certain volatile markets. This isn't to say liquidity disappears entirely, but when we look back in the history of, say, Moncton, for example, it was not uncommon for us to have months of inventory north of 10 or 12 months. When mania exists in a market and it causes people to experience that euphoria and, the fear of missing out, and they need to get in, they need to buy that thing, and they need to buy it now, it causes the prices to go up. And then when panic sets in, it goes the other way entirely. People act equally irrationally in a way that is a little bit more panic induced. It can cause prices to drop a little bit faster and a little bit more extreme than they perhaps should. There is a old saying in investing, and please don't come at me in the comments if I get this wrong, but the best time to invest is when there's blood in the streets. Now, this isn't to say that this is the best time in the world to invest. It's just something you want to keep in mind as things begin to get worse. So how do you handle all this turbulence and chaos? First of all, if you don't have to sell, don't worry and don't panic. Real estate works out pretty well in the long term, historically speaking, and chances are when it is time for you to sell, you'll be okay. Additionally, if you are buying in the same market that you're selling in or selling in the same market you're buying in, you're going to make that difference up on the other end of the purchase. And my personal opinion, if you're selling a house to buy another house, the best time to do that is in a softer market with more inventory, because after all, you're selling a house to get a new house. That's the primary goal, to get a new house. So you want better conditions on the purchase. You're going to have more to look at, more to choose from, as opposed to getting the best price in the world you possibly can on the house you're selling and then having to choose between one house or no house. Now, the neat thing about real estate is even if prices stay flat or drop, the amortization of your loan continues to work even when that market stops working. So you're paying down the principal over time anyways, and even if that market stays flat, your equity will generally go up. As I said before, real estate markets work in cycles. It goes from buyers, shift, balance, shift, sellers, shift, and so on. So it's just about timing it in a way that doesn't screw you over. I'm not saying try to time the market, but don't buy in a seller's market and then sell into a buyer's market. It's probably not going to go that well for you. You should be okay, at least price-wise, but it's going to be a little bit frustrating. Now, in terms of value, real estate is less volatile than other financial assets like stocks, but it can feel a lot more extreme, and it can definitely be a lot more challenging to sell when panic does begin to set in. Some advice I would have for you: be intentional with your debt. Little things like figure out if you're a credit card person or if you're not. Sure, maybe the optimal advice is to have credit cards, but if you're not truly a credit card person, then that advice doesn't work for you. The best advice is the advice that you can actually follow, not the advice that is idealistic. Next, be careful when financing depreciating luxury assets. If you know what you're doing, you're fine, but keep that in mind. If you're borrowing money against the equity in your house to buy something like a boat or an ATV or a sports car, just understand that you are taking a very risky position on a depreciating asset and an asset that has value that may be up in the air right now. Now, sometimes price drops can be good for you. If you're in a position where you can take advantage of good value when it comes out, then there's nothing wrong with a little bit of temporary hit on the value of the house that you're currently living in. As long as you're not selling it, it's not going to affect you in any way. But it might mean that there's more opportunity to find things on the market, whether that be for rental investment or flips, even though we haven't really been able to do flips here in a long time and have it make sense. But you get what I'm saying? There's going to be some more opportunity as the market begins to soften, and it's a great time to prepare yourself to take advantage of those opportunities when they do come. Now, this is a little bit more for the first-time buyers out there, but don't hoard cash. Keep a cash buffer, though. And I'm not talking about a line of credit or a credit card or something like that. You're going to want an actual real amount of cash to cover things in an emergency. If you're struggling with your debt in any way, contact your lenders ASAP. The longer you wait, the more likely it is that your options are going to disappear. So contact them ASAP while you still can. Next, plan ahead for future maintenance and repairs. Try not to leave it to the last minute. Make sure you do an annual home checkup. Make sure everything is in order. Make sure your gutters, your roof, everything is fine. You don't want a shingle to fly off your roof and then have you not notice it until it's too late and you have mold in your attic. So just keep a close eye on the house and make sure the small things are looked at and fixed before they become big things. Now, also keep in mind, the average and the median home price can drop quite a bit, but that doesn't mean that your house has dropped at all. It could mean that the average has dropped, your house might have gone up. It just depends. Everything in real estate is local, so really just look at the data for your specific house. It could be that the house prices could drop 10%, yours might be up 5%. Just make sure what you buy at a good deal and you get the right investment. Now, this might be a little bit unsettling, but think of a mortgage as a forced savings account. Even in that flat market, that amortization is going to continue to work for you and pay down over time. So even if the prices are down and you might be stuck for a bit, you're building equity, even if it doesn't feel like it. Now, of course, the opinions in this video are my own. I am a licensed realtor with Royal LePage Atlantic here in Moncton. My opinions do not reflect the opinions of other members of my office, MBREA, or other affiliated organizations or boards. Even though this is real estate advice, it might not be applicable to your situation, so contact a local qualified professional prior to making any decisions related to real estate or finance. Please find me on Spotify and YouTube, the New Brunswick Real Estate Podcast, as well as Instagram and Facebook, New Brunswick Real Estate. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you're on Spotify, please leave me a review and follow. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe and comment if you have any questions. Thank you very much.